Hello. I'm Sally, your host. Welcome to the third board, my master's chess channel. In this video, I will show you the conclusion of the game played between the Swedish Grandmaster Gösta Stoltz and the Russian-born, French Grandmaster, Alexander Alekhine, in 1931, in the city of Bled, Slovenia. If you have not watched part 1, I recommend you watch it first. Just click the link above. So, let's continue the game. As we watched in the last video, in this position, Alexander Alekhine had black and played knight to e3. White main candidate moves here are pawn to b3, defending the c4 pawn, and knight to g3, giving up the c4 pawn. In the game, Stoltz chose the wrong move, and White's position deteriorated rapidly. Did you find the move that could have saved the game? According to Stockfish, the best move here is knight to g3. This knight is going to e4, where it will block black's rook and attack the queen. White will also be able to put his rook in action, and have some counter play. The game could have continued like this. Knight takes on c4. Knight to e4. Attacking the queen. Knight takes on d2. White cannot take the queen because of this continuation. Rook takes on e1. Rook to f1. Bishop to d4 check. And black would win. Let's return to the variation. After knight takes on d2, the line could continues like this. Queen takes on d2. Queen to b6. Knight takes on f6 check. Pawn takes knight. Rook takes on e8 check. Rook takes rook. And the position would be only slightly better for black. Let's return to the beginning of the variation. In this position, instead of knight takes on c4, black could also play bishop to d4. In this case, the game could continue like this. Knight to e4. Rook takes knight. Queen takes rook. Taking the rook with the pawn would be a blunder, because of knight to g4. And black would win. After queen takes rook, black would play knight takes on c4. Pinning the rook. Queen to e8 check. Queen to f8. Taking the queen with the rook would be worse for black because of rook takes rook check. Queen to f8, forced. Rook takes queen check. King takes rook. And the position would be equal. Let's return to the variation. After queen to f8, white would play queen takes queen check. King takes queen. Bishop to c1. Retreating the bishop and defending the pawn. Pawn to b3. There is no need to hurry to take the rook. Pawn takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. And the position would be better for black. However, in the game, white played pawn to b3. After that, the game continues with rook from b to d8, attacking the queen. And she does not have a good square to retreat, and at same time defend the bishop. Stoltz plays bishop takes knight, rook takes bishop, queen to c2. Observe the position. Although there is no difference in material, White's last moves are forced and his position is completely passive. Bishop to h4, g3, rook takes on f3. Black is a pawn up now. Rook to f1, defending the pinned rook. Bishop to g5, king to g2, rook takes rook check, rook takes rook, queen to c6 check, king to h3. This move was forced. If White retreated his king to f1, then queen to h1 check, knight to g1, bishop to e3, queen to e2, bishop takes on f2, king takes on f2, queen takes on h2 check, and black would win. And, in this position, if White had retreated his king to g1, black would play rook to d2, or bishop to e3, also winning. Let's return to the game. After king to h3, black continues with bishop to e3, rook to f1. And we just arrived at another interesting position of the game. How should Alekhine continue his attack? His next move is not a brilliant sacrifice, as you may be expecting. It is not even the best move according to Stockfish, but it is an excellent move. It may be difficult to find for a beginner player. If you wish to try, pause the video now. In this position, black plays rook to d5, lifting the rook, and adding another piece to the attack. Note that the pawn is pinned. It is interesting to note that black could also have tried rook to d6, or rook to d2. But, Alekhine explains that he chose to move the rook to d5, because if the rook was moved to other square, White could respond with queen to f5, with counter-attack. Let's return to the game. After rook to d5, the game continues with knight to f4, threatening the rook and defending the h5 square. Queen to d7 check, g4. If White played king to g2, then rook to d2, would win. Back to the game. Black plays rook to d4, threatening the knight. Queen to g2. Black cannot take the knight now, because White would checkmate with queen to a1. Alexander Alekhine, in his book, My Best Games of Chess, said the following about White's last move. He still succeeds in finding defense moves, but obviously, cannot long go that way. Back to the game. Black plays pawn to c6, blocking the diagonal. Knight to h5, trying to save the knight. It was better to free the g2 square playing queen to g3, bishop to g5. Black threatens to play pawn to g6, and after the knight retreats to g3, white would take the g4 pawn. Queen to e2. Defending the pawn from the diagonal. g6. Knight to g3. h5. Knight to e4. Blocking the rook. Black will now initiate a series of exchanges that will lead to a winning pawn ending. Queen takes pawn check. Queen takes queen. Pawn takes queen check. King takes pawn. Rook takes knight check. King takes bishop. King to g7. Black now threatens, pawn to f6 check, and white would have to lose the rook to avoid mate. From this position, the game could have continued like this. Rook to f4. The only move that avoids mate and does not lose the rook. f6 check. King to g4. f5 check. King to f3. Rook takes rook check. King takes rook. King to h6. With a winning endgame. But because he did not think it was worth continuing in this position, Gösta Stoltz resigned. Did you like this game? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want notifications of more content like this, please subscribe to this channel. And if you want to make a request regarding some game from the past, leave a comment below. If the game has sufficient research material, my master may consider your request. We wish you good luck in your chess. Thank you, and see you again. Goodbye.